Can you imagine someone living peacefully among 6 corpses for days? Not in some movie, but in reality. On this isolated farmstead in Bavaria, Germany, this wasn't just a crime scene. It was, well, it's a deeply unsettling mystery that's haunted Germany for a whole century now. Today, we're doing a deep dive into one of Germany's most perplexing, most chilling unsolved cases, the Hinterkaifeck murders. We spent a lot of time digging through historical accounts, the official police records, later analyses too. Our mission here is to piece together the facts, look at the strange things that happened before the horror. We'll dissect the long list of suspects and ultimately try to understand what makes this infamous case just so enduringly unsettling, even now, 100 years later.
It really is a story steeped in, well, a grim atmosphere, and to get it, you really need to picture the scene. Hinterkaifeck was this small, secluded farmstead built around 1863, about 70 kilometers north of Munich. The name itself, Hinterkaifeck, it means behind Kaifeck, which was a nearby hamlet. Tells you how isolated it was. Bordered by these dense, dark woods, really remote. And what's really chilling is that less than a year after everything happened, the farm was just
Demolished.
The whole place. Yeah, completely torn down. The community just couldn't stand having that reminder there. But even as they were tearing it down, the farm gave up more secrets. They found a mattock, a Heggie farming tool hidden in the attic, covered in dried blood. And a penknife was found buried deep in the hay in the barn. Today, there's just a small concrete monument there, the Hinterkaifeck Andachtstätte, a memorial.
Wow. Okay, so beyond that really chilling setting, I understand this tragedy wasn't like totally out of the blue.
Yeah.
There were signs, right? What were some of those early unsettling things, the signs that something was deeply wrong at Hinterkaifeck even before the murders themselves?
You're absolutely right. The lead up to this horror is almost as fascinating as the crime itself.
Yeah.
It's filled with these strange, just inexplicable occurrences. So about 6 months before the killings, the family's maid, Kirsten Srager, she just suddenly quit.
Quit. Why?
Her reason was, she said she kept hearing strange noises from the attic. She was convinced the house was haunted. Then, fast forward to March 1922, just weeks before the murders, Andreas Gruber, the head of the family, he finds this weird newspaper on his property.
A newspaper? What was weird about it?
It was from Munich, which is, a fair distance away, and nobody around there subscribed to it. It just appeared.
That is odd, and it gets even more unnerving, doesn't it? Days before the murders, Gruber told neighbors he'd found tracks in fresh snow.
Right. Tracks leading from the forest directly to a door on the machine room, and the lock on that door broken.
Okay, that's definitely cause for alarm.
And that same night, the family heard footsteps, actually heard them, coming from the attic. Gruber searched, but found absolutely no one.
So, haunted house noises, strange newspapers, tracks in the snow, footsteps in the attic. What do you make of Andreas Gruber not reporting this? Especially with kids in the house. Why not go to the police?
That's an excellent question, and it really hints at something deeper, maybe something about the family itself. Gruber's refusal, to get help or tell the authorities, even as things got weirder and weirder, it's perplexing. It suggests maybe he wanted to handle things himself, or maybe he was afraid of what the police might find if they started looking around.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this really heartbreaking detail. 7-year-old Cecilia Gabriel, one of the victims, she apparently told a school friend that her mother, Victoria, had actually run away from the farm the night before the murders.
Run away.
Yeah, after a big fight, a violent quarrel, the report said. They only found her hours later hiding in the forest, apparently very upset. So that paints a picture of a household that was already, pretty volatile or deeply troubled, which might explain Gruber's silence a bit more.
Okay, so against this backdrop of rising tension and these unspoken fears, then came the night itself, March 31st. Walk us through that chilling sequence.
Right. The night of horror unfolded on Friday, March 31st, 1922. A new maid, Maria Baumgartner, she'd only just arrived that very afternoon. Her sister came with her, dropped her off. Her sister was probably the last person outside the family to see them alive. Maria had only worked there for, a single day.
Just one day, wow.
Yeah. It seems that sometime late that evening, Victoria Gabriel, her little girl Cecilia, and Victoria's parents, Andreas and the elder Cecilia Gruber, they were carefully, it seems, lured out to the family barn, one by one, through the stable. That's one of the enduring questions. The original theory was noise from the animals, but we'll get back to that. But once in the barn, they were murdered, brutally, with a mattock, that same type of tool later found in the loft. Killed by precise, deliberate blows to the head. After killing those 4 in the barn, the attacker, or attackers, went into the house. And Using the same weapon, they killed 2-year-old Joseph in his crib and Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, in her bedchamber.
Just horrific. And, if that wasn't chilling enough, what really pushes this case into that realm of enduring mystery is how long it all went unnoticed. 4 days. How does a scene like that remain hidden for so long, and what finally brought it all to light?
It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? 4 whole days between the killings and the discovery, so April 1st, the day after. These coffee sellers, Hans and Edward Turovsky, they show up to make a delivery. They notice the gate to the machine house is open, which is odd, but nobody answers when they call out, so they just leave.
Just left.
Then, little Cecilia doesn't show up for school. For days, no explanation. And the whole family misses Sunday church service, which was apparently very unusual for them. These little things started raising some, faint alarms in the community. But still.
Still nobody really checked properly.
Exactly. It wasn't until Tuesday, April 4th, a local mechanic, Albert Hoffner, he arrived at Hinterkaifeck to fix an engine. He said he worked there for over 4 hours, saw nobody, heard nothing but the farm animals and the dog barking.
4 hours and saw nothing.
That's what he said. The real alarm finally gets raised around 3:30 that afternoon. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor, sends his son and stepson over to check. When they come back saying they couldn't find anyone, Schlittenbauer gets this bad feeling. He goes over himself with 2 other men, Michael Pohl and Jacob Sigel, and that's when they go into the barn and find the 4 bodies, stacked up. Shortly after, they found Maria Baumgartner and little Joseph murdered inside the house. Just a completely grim scene.
But the horror of finding them, that was just the start of the problems for the investigators, right? Because the initial response kind of made things worse.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a textbook example of how not to handle a major crime scene, especially back then, but even so. When Inspector Georg Gruber and his team finally got there, the place was already crawling with people. Onlookers, neighbors. People had moved the bodies. They'd picked things up, moved items around. And incredibly, some people had apparently even, made themselves comfortable in the kitchen. Cooked food, ate meals.
Cooked meals?
Yeah.
At the crime scene?
Yeah. Destroying who knows what crucial evidence. Fingerprints, footprints, fibers, anything. That initial contamination, it wasn't just a mistake. It basically set the investigation up to fail from the start, erasing the clues that might have solved it right then and there.
So the very first moments basically doomed the investigation in some ways.
Yeah.
But beyond those mistakes, the fact that the killer, or killers, stayed there for 3 days after the murders, that detail just elevates this whole thing. It's not just murder, it's something else, something profoundly disturbing. What does that tell us?
It's possibly the most chilling aspect of the entire case. It really is. The autopsies, they were actually done right there in the barn by the court physician, Johann Baptist Müller. He confirmed the mattock was likely the weapon. But here's where it gets even darker. The younger Cecilia, the 7-year-old. The autopsy showed she'd actually been alive for several hours after the attack.
Oh, God.
She was found to have torn out clumps of her own hair while lying there in the straw, just unimaginable terror. The victims' skulls were actually removed and sent to Munich for further examination, hoping for clues. But nothing conclusive came of it. And like you said, robbery was ruled out pretty quickly. They found a large stash of money untouched in the house.
So not a robbery.
Which leads to that terrifying realization you mentioned. The killer, or killers, stayed on the farm for 3 days after the murders. They fed the cattle, they ate the family's bread from the kitchen, the whole supply was gone. They'd even recently cut meat from the pantry.
Just living there.
Living there, among the dead. It points to someone incredibly cold, calculated, maybe someone who even knew the farm, knew the routines. It suggests this profound psychological disconnect. A complete lack of remorse. It's baffling.
Right.
And as we know, the case remains unsolved. Officially closed in 1955. The last known interrogations were in 1986. Still nothing.
And those unanswered questions just seem to multiply when you look at the inconsistencies, the weird reports that came out later. What stands out to you? What are the most perplexing of those sort of loose ends, the things that make this mystery really stick?
Oh, there are so many threads that just dangle there, unresolved. Like that original theory about how the victims were lured to the barn by noise from the stable, restless animals. Well, later investigations, people testing it out, found you actually couldn't hear noise from the barn inside the house.
Really? So that theory doesn't hold up?
It casts serious doubt on it, yeah. Then you have these eyewitness accounts that were never really followed up properly. The night after the crime, April 1st, an artisan named Michael Pluckhole was walking past Hinterkaifeck late at night. He saw the oven was lit, heated up, And he noticed this revolting smell coming from the smoke.
Revolting smell, like something burning.
Exactly. And as he got closer, someone came towards him with a lantern, blinding him. He got spooked and left quickly. That incident. Never fully investigated what was being burned in that oven. We'll never know.
That's incredibly unsettling. Just imagine. And there were other sightings too, weren't there?
Yes. Another farmer, Simon Reislander, he reported seeing two figures, mysterious figures, at the edge of the woods near Brunnen. Very early morning, 3 a.m. April 1st. When they saw him, they turned away quickly, like they were hiding their faces. He always wondered if they were connected. And then, years later, this is really weird, 1927, a stranger supposedly stops a local resident late at night, asks questions about the murders, then suddenly shouts, "I am the murderer," and just runs off into the woods.
Seriously.
That's the story. And that stranger, never identified, never found. It's these kinds of details, these like ghostly echoes that just keep the case alive, forever unresolved.
Okay, so given all these loose ends, all the strangeness, it's really no surprise there was a long list of suspects over the years. Who are some of the main people that the police, or even just the locals, thought might have done it? What made them suspicious?
Oh, the suspect list is huge. It really shows how desperate the community was for answers. One of the most intriguing possibilities is Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband. Now, he was officially reported killed in action in World War I back in 1914, but his body was never actually recovered.
Ah, they never found the body trope, so people thought maybe he wasn't dead.
Exactly. Speculation ran wild that he might have survived, especially since Victoria had her son Joseph, while Carl was supposedly dead. And there were those strong rumors, even documented in court records, about an incestuous relationship between Victoria and her father, Andreas. That was Joseph's suspected paternity. A dark secret, but known in the village.
Right.
Then, after World War II, this really chilling claim surfaces. Some German POWs returning from Russia said they were told by a Soviet officer who spoke German that he was the Hinterkaifeck murderer, which led some to wonder, could that have been Carl Gabriel? Maybe he went to Russia after faking his death. It's wild speculation, but it's out there.
Then there's Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor who found the bodies. He was considered a suspect too, right? Believed to be Joseph's father.
Yes, absolutely. Schlittenbauer was widely believed to be Joseph's biological father, and his actions on the day of the discovery raised a lot of eyebrows locally. Remember, they had to break a gate to get into the barnyard. But right after finding the bodies in the barn, Schlittenbauer apparently used a key he had to unlock the front door of the house and went inside alone.
Alone? Why?
He claimed he was looking for his son, Joseph, but it seemed suspicious. He also allegedly disturbed the bodies at the scene before the police arrived, moved them around.
Not good.
No. Locals suspected him for years, especially after someone found him poking around the demolished farm ruins in 1925. Schlittenbauer apparently commented that the killer couldn't bury the bodies because the ground was frozen, which seemed like odd knowledge to volunteer. But it's important to note, despite all the gossip, he successfully sued several people for slander when they openly accused him.
Okay, and the list goes on, I imagine.
Oh, it does. The Gump brothers, Adolf and Anton, they came under suspicion too. Adolf was involved with the Freikorps, those right-wing paramilitary groups after World War I. He even had a warrant out for another earlier murder.
A prior murder warrant. Okay.
Yeah, and their own sister, Crescentia Mayer, apparently claimed on her deathbed that Adolf and Anton did it. Anton was held for a bit, but eventually released. They couldn't prove he was involved. Then there was this weird letter in 1971. It claimed the mother of two brothers, Carl S. and Andreas S., had said her sons were the murderers, and that Andreas regretted losing his penknife. And remember, a pocket knife was found when they tore the farm down.
Whoa. But didn't the maid say she'd seen that knife before?
Exactly. Kristen Sreger, the maid who quit, she claimed she recognized it, said it had been on the farm already, so maybe not the killer's knife after all. Another dead end, sort of.
What about Peter Weber, another name that came up?
Yes, he was named by a coworker, Joseph Betts. Betts claimed Weber knew a lot about the farm, knew about the rumors of incest, and supposedly Weber had even suggested to Betts that they kill Andreas Gruber for his money.
Seriously? He suggested it?
According to Betts, yes. When Betts didn't go for it, Weber supposedly just dropped the subject. Still pretty suspicious. Then you have the Bischler brothers, Anton and Carl, and another man, Georg Siegel. They were suspected by the former maid, Crescence Reiger. Anton Bischler knew the farm well, apparently talked about the family, saying things like, they ought to be dead. Reiger also noted the farm dog, which barked at everyone else, never barked at Anton.
The dog didn't bark.
Classic clue.
Right, and she thought Carl Bichler might have been a stranger she saw lurking around her window near the time of the murders. Georg Siegel. He used to work there, knew the family had money, and chillingly he admitted he had actually carved the wooden handle for the murder weapon, the mattock, and knew exactly where it was kept in the barn.
Good grief, the list just keeps going. This is incredible. It really is. The Thaler brothers also got suspected by Reiger. They were known local burglars. Joseph Thaler had apparently questioned Reiger about the Grubers, asking about their sleeping arrangements, saying he knew they had money. Reiger also saw him with someone else, looking towards the machine house, maybe reconnaissance. And finally, there's a much more modern theory, a really fascinating one, from authors Bill and Rachel McCarthy James. Their book, The Man from the Train.
The man from the train, what's that theory?
They propose a German migrant named Paul Mueller. He was a suspect in a whole string of incredibly similar family murders across the U.S. between about 1898 and 1912.
Similar how?
The pattern is uncanny. Entire families killed in isolated homes. The weapon was always a blunt farm tool, usually an axe or pickaxe from the property itself. Bodies often moved or stacked. Robbery was never the motive. And there seemed to be this suspected sadistic focus on young girls.
Wow, that sounds disturbingly close to Hinterkaifeck.
It does. The authors looked at the Hinterkaifeck case and rated the chances of Mueller being the killer as, quote, more or less a toss-up, which for a century-old cold case, linking it to a potential serial killer from another continent, that's pretty remarkable.
It really is remarkable how a case from, 1922 still grabs people like this, even leading to modern police academy students re-examining it fairly recently. What did that 2007 re-examination find? Did modern techniques shed any new light, or does it just show how much we don't know?
It's super interesting what they found. These 15 students from the Furstenfeldbruck Police Academy, they went back over everything using modern methods. They actually concluded that the original investigation for its time in 1922 was surprisingly meticulous in many ways. They gathered a lot of information. But they heavily criticized the big failure, the lack of professional forensics, especially as we mentioned, not taking fingerprints. That was already a known technique then, a huge miss.
A critical error.
Definitely. But here's the really intriguing part of the report. All the students, working independently, apparently came to a consensus on who the main suspect most likely was.
They identified a prime suspect.
They seem to have agreed on one person, but they never released the name, out of consideration for any living descendants. So even the modern look leaves us hanging, in a way, and you see the case's grip everywhere, the best-selling novel Tana, the film based on it, TV shows like Lore covering it. It just speaks to that deep human fascination with true crime, especially the ones that remain unsolved, that profound unease.
Absolutely. It really is a testament to the power of this kind of deep, dark mystery. Despite all the details, all the suspects, the old theories, the new ones, even modern analysis, the who and the why of Hinterkaifeck just remain elusive.
It's that unique horror, isn't it? Thinking about the perpetrator just living there for 3 days, doing the farm chores, eating their food, with the victims nearby. That level of coldness, that calculation, combined with the silence of the victims beforehand, the remoteness, it just creates this perfect storm, an unsolved crime that maybe just defies a simple explanation.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you listening to really ponder. In our world, with DNA, advanced forensics, global communication, what does the fact that Hinterkaifeck remains so chillingly unsolved tell us? What does it say about the nature of truly baffling crimes, about the limits of justice, and maybe, just maybe, about the unsettling possibility that some secrets are simply too dark or too well buried in the past to ever be fully brought into the light?